What's up, everybody? Going down this weekend, we got UFC Vegas 119, Manel Kape versus Kyoji Horiguchi 2. And this is going to be my full card breakdown and predictions. This is a banger flyweight main event. These two dudes right here are two of my favorite fighters to watch in all of the UFC, especially when it comes to the striking. I mean, the knockout power that Manel has in the flyweight division is spectacular, and I think that he is the heaviest hitter in the flyweight division. And then Kyoji Horiguchi is just a smooth tactician on the feet. That karate-like style, moving in and out of range, very, very tricky to deal with. And this is a rematch. These guys fought all the way back in 2017 to where Kyoji Horiguchi was able to get the head and arm choke in round number 3. It was a back and forth type of fight to where I feel like both of these guys have gotten a lot better since that first meeting, and now their paths cross here in 2026 in the UFC. I am really looking forward to this banger of a main event in the flyweight division, which in my opinion is one of the most stacked divisions in the UFC right now. Welterweight and flyweight are, in my opinion, the best two divisions in the UFC at this time. And we got some other good fights on here, right? Ian Cutelaba versus upcoming light heavyweight prospect Navajo Sterling, who's been looking very impressive, training over at City Kickboxing. So we see some new wrinkles in his game. He's been putting on some impressive performances. Got a tough one in front of him and a proven veteran in Ian Cutelaba, who's been in the UFC for a really long time. Should be a good fight. C-Rod, Christian Rodriguez versus the Berserker man, the crazy wild dude in there, Hyder, who's back, always in an action-packed fight. This should be a fun one in the featherweight division. We got Andre Lima, who I think is one of the best up-and-coming flyweights in the UFC versus the always game Kevin Borjas. We got Melsik Baghdasaryan versus Murtazali Magomedov, who's making his debut. He's got a ton of hype behind him right now. Vinny Oliveira moving up to the featherweight division to take on the OG always game Andre Fili. We got some good fights on here, man. I'm looking forward to this card. Obviously, going from the White House card back to the Apex, a little bit of a rough one, but I think it's a good card overall. I think we got some good fights. Obviously, going from a historic fight card to then at the Apex, it feels a little bit underwhelming, but this is a solid fight card. We got some fights on here that I'm really looking forward to. Without further ado, let's rock and roll right into this thing. Our first fight of the night, we got Shane Collins versus Otari Tanzilovi. So this is one that I've kind of went back and forth on because two guys that are relatively unproven. Right, so when you turn on the tape, what you see in Otari Tanzilovi is I believe that he trains with Merab Dvalishvili, right? So he's getting in some good reps with a super high-level fighter, a madman in the machine, Merab. And Otari, to me, fights kind of different, right? He's more of a striking-based guy, right? Can switch it up on the feet, rips good kicks to the body, brings really good head kicks to the table, has good shot selection on the feet, can be a little bit wild, which is, I think, something that can be to his benefit in this fight, but also something that could potentially get him into some trouble. We have seen that his ground game is pretty solid. Now, granted, you have to take a lot of this with a little bit of I don't want to say a grain of salt, but always with some hesitancy because we got to see it at the UFC level first before we start saying so-and-so's an elite striker, so-and-so's elite on the ground, right? About 2 years ago, he did lose a close one on DWCS, so we have seen him at a relatively high level. I know we see guys, come over from DWCS. It works out. Sometimes it doesn't. But I like what I've seen from Otari, right? Very, very, very dangerous on the feet. Very, very explosive. He's got power. I really like his kicking game. But something's telling me that Shane Collins is going to be able to get this one done, man. So I'm going to go with Shane Collins. And the reason for that being, I really like what I have seen from Shane Collins. This is a guy that, to me, has a very, very, I don't want to say underrated skill set because we haven't seen him in the UFC yet, but his striking is looking clean as can be, man. His boxing, he throws perfect straight shots down the middle. I like the body work. And whenever you see a 26-year-old fighter who's young, got 7 pro fights, in his career, and you see him going to the body, you see him tagging dudes, getting them hurt, backing them up along the fence, and not just headhunting, but lowering down, ripping to the body, ripping to all levels. I really like that in a young fighter. So I think that this is actually going to be a fun back and forth fight to where I could definitely see either guy getting it done. But I am going to side with Shane Collins. I think that his boxing is a little bit cleaner. I think when Otari loads up on those big kicks, that's where Collins can look to counter with his hands. And I also like the grappling upside that Shane brings to the table. Now, having said that, I don't know that he's going to be able to keep Otari down, right? I think he could get him down, but I think that Tanzilovi will be able to work back to his feet. I think he can scramble well. I think this is going to be an action-packed fight, but I'm going to side with Shane Collins to be a little bit sharper on the feet and beat the kicking game of Otari. And Otari has power in his hands, of course. He's very explosive, very dynamic, but I am going to side with Shane Collins here, and I think he gets it done on the scorecards. 29-28. I think Otari has some moments. I think Collins has moments, but I'm going to go with the guy that I think has a little bit cleaner hands on the feet with some grappling upside in Shane Collins. I think if anyone has success with the grappling offensively, I think it would be Collins, but I think that aspect can possibly cancel out in this fight. And Collins has shown that he's competent on the ground, does have a submission game, has some good ground and pound, so dangerous guys here with a point to prove, so I think it's going to be a great fight, but I'll side with Shane Collins. I like what I've seen when it comes to the boxing on his side. Next up, we got Leon Shahbazyan versus Levan Chokheli. I always butcher his name, so I'm sorry, Levan. Chokheli is a guy that I was watching over in Bellator for quite some time, and I remember that KO he had over Dustin Poirier's dude, good friend of DP's, Sabah Hamasi, right, who I loved watching in Bellator, is just a absolute savage of a fighter with devastating knockout power. And Levan caught him with a beautiful front kick right up the middle and was able to put him away. I mean, and then he was able to get a victory over Roman Feraldo, who I believe was training with Jorge Masvidal and maybe Johnny Eblen and some of those guys. And Feraldo was a guy that had a ton of hype at one point. So that was a huge win, right? Was able to take out Michael Lombardo. That front kick I was talking about with Sabah Hamasi, which was super impressive. Did get knocked out by Lorenz Larkin, but I mean, Lorenz Larkin, just as dangerous as they come, especially almost 2 years ago. I mean, Larkin's got devastating power in his hands, is very explosive. And then coming off of a victory, but he's been away for a year. Right, so that's something a little bit interesting coming into this. But at 29 years of age, I really like what I've seen from Levan, a guy that's shown it to me at a much higher level than Leon Shahbazyan has. Now, to be fair, I don't just say, well, wait a minute, Levan's shown us more at a higher level, so that just means Shahbazyan's got no shot and he can't win the fight, because that's not necessarily fair to Shahbazyan. Not his fault per se that he wasn't, in Bellator or anything like that, but I believe he's the brother of Edmund Shahbazyan, so getting a little bit of that last name rub maybe, and I do think that Leon has some skills. I think that on the feet, he's kind of, plays the longer, rangy type of game. He's going to have a couple inch, 1.5 inch reach advantage, couple inch height advantage to where he can play that long game from the outside and maybe snipe Levan on the way in, right? And I know that Shahbazyan's one of these guys to where if he could get you down and get you into one of those front headlock positions, he's got some good submissions from, that particular spot on the ground. So I think if Shahbazyan gets it done, he clips Levan on the feet, Levan dives for a takedown. Shahbazyan locks in something in a front headlock position. Maybe goes for a Darce ahead. And I don't know. I could just see him finding some sort of submission in a scramble if that's how Shahbazyan wins, but I don't think it happens. I know that Shahbazyan's got some good wins here, but the level of opposition to me, again, not his fault. He's just fighting who he can on the regional scene, but man, I got to go with Levan. I've seen him do it at a higher level, and that's not always a factor in me picking somebody, but I've seen him in there not only at a higher level, but winning fights against very good opposition, man. Like Roman Feraldo, I think he's a much better fighter than Leon, at least what we've seen so far. I mean, Shahbazyan, 30, he's going to make improvements, right? Beating Michael Lombardo and the Sabah Hamasi win. And I know, Sabah sometimes he shows up, puts on great performances. Other times maybe a little underwhelming, but super dangerous fighter. I think that those guys are more dangerous than Leon. I'm going to go with Levan Chokheli here, and I think that he's going to be able to find the chin of Shahbazyan early and put him on his heels and get him out of there with a big shot, because what we've seen with Levan, he's got kind of that Muay Thai-like style, high guard, moving forward, can chop away at the legs, bring the shots to the body as well, and I think that the power in his hands is going to be a little bit too much for Shahbazyan in this matchup. I got some questions about Leon's game. Is he UFC ready? Right, those are some of the, his last loss, to be fair, was 3 years ago, right? And that was to Ryan Loder, who we've seen in the UFC. Hasn't been particularly great in the UFC, but we have seen that you can get to Shahbazyan, you can hurt him and put him away. I think Levan just might be the best fighter that Shahbazyan has fought. I think Chokheli goes out there and puts the pressure on him and is able to tag him up on the feet, keep the fight in his world, and find a big shot that puts him away up along the fence. Give me Chokheli by round 1. Knockout. Next, we got Karol Rosa versus Luana Santos. Now, this is one that I've been back and forth on because I feel like the way whoever wins, it will be very, very clear in the aspect of how they win. If Karol Rosa is going to win this fight, she stuffs the takedowns of Luana Santos and just outworks her on the feet, outstrikes her, and outdamages her. Like, that's how I see Rosa winning this fight. And then if Santos wins this fight, it's going to be by getting Karol down, getting into dominant positions, controlling her on the floor, maybe even finding some sort of submission, but I feel like it would be control time, winning minutes on the deck, and just having her way in the grappling with Karol Rosa. So it's really, well, which result do you necessarily think is going to happen, right? Because I think if these ladies fight 10 out of 10 times, I could see it going 5-5. So who is going to get the better of the other in this matchup is kind of how I'm looking at it, and I just feel like the 26-year-old Luana Santos is going to be able to do just enough to get this one done by a competitive decision. I smell a little bit of a split decision going on here, right? A very, very close 29-28 Luana Santos decision. I think it's going to be one of those situations to where if Rosa keeps it on the feet, I think she's got a pretty clear advantage, right? She's got good volume, good output. We've seen her in there with some really good opposition, right? In there against Yana Santos, got it done in a close one there, right? Lost to Irene Aldana, who's a sensational boxer, in WMMA, right? So not a bad loss there. Beat Pani Kianzad, who's got good striking, lost to Eileen Perez, which I'm not saying that Santos is as good as Perez, but similar attributes, right? Has the grappling skills, has some good throws, right? Santos has that judo game, right? Beating Nora, the great Cornholio, right? Nora's a good striker, but has shown some vulnerabilities when it comes to the grappling. We've seen that Rosa's got solid grappling of her own, so it's not like she's a scrub if the fight hits the floor, but we have seen her taken down, we have seen her controlled, and I just feel like that's where Luana has an advantage in this fight. And to be fair to Luana Santos, I don't think that she's like a world beater on the feet, but I do think her striking has gotten a little bit better, right? Did lose to Casey O'Neill, which maybe you could draw some comparisons here. Casey O'Neill, who looked amazing in her return recently, right? Put it on, I think it was Gabriela Fernandez, put her away, which was crazy, but O'Neill's got some power, good striking, good forward pressure. I feel like maybe Rosa can implement a little bit of a similar strategy, right? An armbar or an Americano submission over Lisboa, pretty impressive, right? Taking out Melissa Croden by decision. That was a good performance. And Croden, kind of I don't want to say the same style as Rosa, but that dog, tough, move forward, heavy pressure, put the volume out there, try to land some big shots. I feel like that was kind of a good fight to prepare Luana for a matchup like this. So I'm going to say Luana gets it done in a very competitive fight. I'll say split decision. It'll come down to Luana winning minutes on the deck. I think Luana's striking, like I said, it's not great, but I do think it's gotten a little bit better. We do see some occasional good straight shots down the middle, but with the judo game blended with the jiu-jitsu, I can see her trapping Rosa along the fence, getting to some of those throws, getting her on the deck, keeping her down, controlling her. We saw Perez have some success there, and I think on the feet, Santos can stay safe enough to kind of skate around and not get beat up too bad by Karol Rosa. But if Santos doesn't have success grappling, I think she's going to be in a lot of trouble against a very seasoned fighter in Rosa who's got good striking on the feet, good output, and does have some power to where I could definitely see Santos being in some trouble there. But I'll say that Santos is able to get this one done in a close one by control-based grappling. Maybe if she finds a submission, that'd be very impressive, but I'll say decision. Next, we got Michael Aswell versus Gaston Bolanos. And I know that Gaston Bolanos, when you see him in the red shorts and he gets the, the haircut, he looks a little bit like maybe of a knockoff Ilia Topuria, but the reality is Gaston Bolanos is a guy that's been a little bit underwhelming to me. And I know that Gaston Bolanos does have solid striking, right? He's not a bad striker. His hands are pretty good. His kicking game is solid. But one of the things about Bolanos, right, I believe he fought over in Bellator, right, where he had put on some good performances, was knocking dudes out, right, beat Aaron Phillips, lost to Marcus McGee when he came into the UFC. And I mean, we know how good Marcus McGee is. I think that he's basically a top 15 fighter, right? A guy that, was able to have some success against Piotr Jan, just put on a great performance against John Yanis. Like, Marcus McGee's legit. So not a bad loss, right? Was able to get it done over Cortavius Romeus, which is a solid victory. Most recently getting subbed by Quang Lei. Not the greatest look. And I know that Kwang's pretty solid. I understand that. But Gaston Bolanos, to me, in this fight, it's going to be a little bit tough for him, because if he can stay at range and play that kickboxing type game where he can get the kicks going, get some of his long rangey combos, fighting behind the jab, getting the right hand popping, ripping some shots to the body, I could see Bolanos possibly finding a way to get it done. But, man, I got to go with Michael Aswell in this fight. I think Michael Aswell, right, training over at 4 Ounce Fight Club, all of those dudes over there can box, right? I mean, Joshua Van, Alden Correa, Michael, they are Dakota Hope, I believe, right? I mean, all these dudes got good hands. So, and especially Joshua Van, as we all know, and Correa's looking like one of the next up-and-coming dudes in the flyweight division, which is crazy how stacked flyweight is, like I was saying at the beginning of the video. But back to this fight. Michael Aswell, to me, I didn't think he was going to win this fight against Luke Riley, but to me, Luke Riley is much better than Gaston Bolanos and much more dangerous than Gaston Bolanos. So Michael Aswell had to be a little bit cautious in that fight in his approach. And Michael Aswell, what we know is he's as durable as they come. The dude has got a granite chin. He moves forward. His head movement sometimes can be a little bit lacking, but he's got a good high guard, can fight behind the jab, mix in some kicks as well. Pressure the heck out of you, back you up, put you on the back foot. And he also has a little bit of I'd say an underrated grappling game to where I could see him potentially, shooting a couple takedowns, putting Gaston Bolanos down, putting him on his back, wearing on him a little bit, trying to fatigue him, right? Had a close fight with Bogdan on DWCS, which was a crazy fight, right? Did beat Dorian Ramos. Lost to Balagioki, who's a much heavier hitter, I think, than a guy like Bolanos, right? Was able to stop Lucas Almeida, but I believe Almeida had like a broken hand or something in that fight. So either way, Michael Aswell, to me, I just think he's the better fighter. I think he could get this one done. I'll say by a decision, but I would not be surprised if he gets like a mid to late round TKO if Bolanos starts to fade and starts to slow down. We have seen at moments, we can see Gaston be very gettable, especially as the fight plays out. I expect Aswell Jr.'s forward pressure to pay off in this fight, and I don't think Bolanos is knocking him out. That would surprise me if Bolanos was able to stop Aswell, because you've seen how durable Aswell is. Ate some big shots against, Luke Riley, who's a very dangerous Muay Thai-like striker with good boxing, who was able to knock out a guy like Bogdan. So Aswell had to be very careful of the power against Balagioki, to where I think Bolanos does have some sting, but not to the level of those guys. I think he'll be a little bit more on the gas, not be so worried about the power of Bolanos, which allows him to open up. I think Aswell fights behind the jab, fires the right hand behind it, works the body, mixes in maybe some grappling as well, at least to get into the clinch, and wear on the gas tank of Bolanos. I think he slows down. Aswell wins this one. I'll say 30-27. I think he gets a clean sweep on the cards and possibly even a mid to late TKO stoppage if Bolanos slows down, because Aswell's boxing is pretty good. But from what we've seen from Aswell, more of a volume, battle of attrition style of striker. So I'll say by decision, but I could definitely see the TKO. Next, we got an interesting one. We got Mitch Raposo versus Allan Nascimento. Now, this fight was supposed to happen at least a few weeks back, probably even a few months ago, if I'm not, I think it was maybe the Canada card, or I can't remember, but it was scheduled for, a little bit ago. And now we have more time in between for these guys to kind of prepare for each other, really kind of think about the matchup, maybe work on some extra things to prepare for this fight. So I do think that could potentially be some sort of element coming into this. But this to me is a really tricky fight, and I kind of have this at like a 50-50 fight, because I think Allan Nascimento is one of, if not the most dangerous jiu-jitsu player that Raposo has been in there with. But having said that, I have questions about Nascimento's ability to get the fight to the floor, because I don't think his wrestling is particularly great. And I think Raposo has good offensive and defensive wrestling. So jiu-jitsu we give to Nascimento. Wrestling we give to Raposo. On the feet, who's the better boxer? It's Mitch Raposo. Who's the better, kicker and clinch player? I would say that that's Nascimento. So this to me is one of those fights where it's like kind of pick your attributes, so to speak. And I think that that's what makes this really, really interesting. And at one point in time, I was being a little bit critical of Mitch Raposo, because I was saying, man, this guy, he has the skills, right? He was training over at New England Cartel with Cater and those guys. And I'm like, he's got the boxing, he's got the wrestling, but we need to see it on display at a high level, right? And it always felt like Mitch Raposo was just coming up short of getting into the UFC, right? Then got an opportunity against Andre Lima, who is an absolute savage. Close decision loss. Right? Close decision loss to Sumadarje, even though I didn't think that it was split. It was still close either way. Right? And we're seeing how good Sumadarje is, especially on the feet. right? And then most recently put on a great performance against Azat Maxim, right? Did get taken down, but got right back up to the feet. And I think that Maxim is probably a better wrestler than Allan Nascimento, at least, pure wrestling. So, interesting fight. And my initial lean was thinking maybe Allan Nascimento can get to the back of Mitch Raposo, find a submission, which I think is definitely possible. But I feel like this is a brutal weight cut getting down to 125 for Nascimento. He's a guy to me that it feels like these weight cuts are pretty brutal for him. So if he does come in and make the weight on point, how is that going to affect the gas tank of Nascimento? We see him kind of fatigue at times. We see him slow down, right? Did lose to Tagiro Mbeka, but that was 4 years ago. And since he's been on a nice win streak, beating Jake Hadley, Carlos Hernandez by sub, Jafel Filio. And this was a fight that I felt like Jafel in a way kind of fumbled. He was chasing positions or chasing submission over position, losing positions to where Nascimento would end up in a better spot, right? Most recently, subs Cody Durden. Durden was doing okay until he got caught. And that's the scary thing for Raposo in this fight is if he gets stung up by Nascimento, Nascimento is going to put him in a spider web and find a submission and get him up out of there. And I think Nascimento, he's got good leg kicks, good front kicks up the middle, over at Chute Box, that, Charles Oliveira like Muay Thai game, forward pressure, high guard, not a lot of head movement, and good offensive tools with the kicks, the elbows, and knees to where I think he could damage up Raposo, possibly find a way to cause grappling entanglements to get to a position to find the submission. But if that doesn't happen, man, I feel like the boxing of Mitch Raposo is going to be something that can take advantage of Nascimento in this fight. And I originally was going to side with Nascimento, but I am going to pick Mitch Raposo to get this one done by a 29-28 close decision, maybe even a split decision here. And the reason being is the weakness to a lot of Muay Thai style of strikers is boxing. Not that Nascimento doesn't have good hands, right? And a lot of Muay Thai fighters do have good hands. But where they tend to struggle is boxing defense. They don't move their head very well, right? They kind of rely on the binoculars, right? Keeping the hands up, relying on that high guard, aggressive forward pressure to where I know that Raposo's not the heaviest hitter in the world, right? And Nascimento's going to have a pretty big reach advantage here. But Nascimento doesn't use it that well. And, the front kicks up the middle I think would be great. Attacking the lead leg of Raposo, calf kicks, slowing him down, making it a little bit, taking some of that explosiveness away from Mitch. But I think slick Mitch Raposo is going to have something up his sleeve here, man. Looking back on these losses, these aren't bad losses. And I think that these guys are competitive with Nascimento, if not, maybe even beat him. Right? So he's been in there with some good strikers. Obviously, Nascimento has some danger on the feet, some good tools. And obviously, it's the submission threat that is very worrisome. But I think Raposo, we've seen him submitted in the past, but that was quite a few years ago. I think Raposo comes out with a smart game plan. Does worry me that sometimes he could be very, very low output. But I feel like with the second chance in the UFC, coming off of a nice win over Maxim, who I don't think is in the UFC anymore and ended up being a little bit disappointing, I still think it was impressive by Raposo to go out there and get the job done. So Raposo scrambly, going to have to be careful because Nascimento's sticky on the deck. I could definitely see Nascimento winning a control-based decision, stinging Raposo, maybe finding a submission. But I think Raposo's boxing and explosiveness is going to be able to take advantage of some of the flaws defensively that Nascimento has on the feet. And I could see Nascimento slowing down. I got some questions about the gas tank of Nascimento. So give me Mitch Raposo in a close one, but I could see this one going either way. 50-50 fight to me. Next, we got Bia Mesquita versus Melissa Mullins. Now, Bia Mesquita, to me, is like one of these, like a savior for the bantamweight division in a way, right? Because the women's bantamweight division has just kind of been stale for a while, and we're just kind of waiting for like a ton of contenders. And Bia Mesquita's as legit as it gets, man. At 35 years of age, right? A world-class, they call her the Lady Goat, man. Like world-class elite jiu-jitsu skills. And I know that Melissa Mullins has a very good ground game, especially for her MMA grappling. It's good. Then she does have a straight-up good jiu-jitsu game as well. But there's just levels on the ground. There's just levels. Like, I have no doubt in my mind that Bia Mesquita is head and shoulders above Mullins on the ground. Now, where things do get a little bit interesting is Melissa Mullins can make fights a little bit dirty. Get into the clinch, wear on you, get to some of the striking game, get to some of the elbows and knees in close. But the issue that I have for Mullins in this fight is, while she's been relatively impressive, right, did get finished by Nora, the great Cornholio, who's nasty on the feet, right, got, lost and got outstruck by Daria Zelenziakovia, to where I believe she beat Daria before and leaned on the grappling. In this fight, she just wasn't chasing the takedowns. And I know Daria improved the takedown defense, but it's kind of a weird approach, right? Got a nice stoppage over Claudia Segula, which is actually aged pretty well, right? Got the ground and pound stoppage. We've seen, there's that win over Zelensniakova, stopping her via ground and pound. We've seen some good things from Mullins. She was supposed to fight, I believe, against Luana Carolina, and then I think Carolina missed weight. The fight fell off the UK card, and Mullins was very upset about it, which I feel for her there. I just think this is a tough matchup for her, man. Bia Mesquita, I was obviously watching her, compete, in jiu-jitsu over in LFA. Just absolutely devastating on the ground. And the thing that's became a problem is she's training over at ATT. And at 35 years of age, which is, an older prospect per se, she's made rapid improvements in her game. And we saw that against Montserrat Rendon, right? Hurt her on the feet, right? We're seeing power. We're seeing improved striking. It's not that she's necessarily going to be a world beater on the feet, but it's just, if she can sting you, you're in a world of trouble because she's just going to be better than basically everybody on the ground, especially when it comes to the pure jiu-jitsu. So I think in this fight, Melissa Mullins is tough. She's game. She can mix things up and possibly find a way to pull off an upset here. But I just don't think it happens, man. I think Bia Mesquita is the real deal. And I think that the striking, getting better, knowing that in their last fight she was able to hurt, Rendon on the feet, I think that that's going to be something that Melissa Mullins is going to be cautious of. I think that she's going to have a patient approach, knowing that Mesquita has improved with the striking, does have the power to put you away. And I think at some point, Mesquita is going to be able to get to the grappling, take down Mullins, and find a submission very early in this fight. And sometimes we see the questionable fight IQ from Mullins. So maybe Melissa looks to initiate the grappling, right? Fighting with a little bit of an ego, looking for a point to prove. That would not be wise. Bia Mesquita, to me, levels above Melissa Mullins on the ground with the improved striking of Mesquita. She's got some danger there to where she could sting Mullins badly. And on the deck, Mesquita, it's just a matter of time until you get submitted. And the thing about Bia, as well as her striking improving, her overall grappling has gotten better, right? Her takedown entries, blending the takedowns right behind the striking to set it up better. Her offensive wrestling along the cage alongside the fence has gotten much better. So I like seeing a fighter make rapid improvements in their game, especially when they're elite in a particular area. I feel like Bia Mesquita, she's a big favorite for a reason coming into this one, and I agree with her being a big favorite because on the ground, there's just levels, and with the improved striking, I think Mullins is in trouble everywhere the fight goes. I think she stings Mullins, takes her down, and submits her. Maybe, I don't know. She's been getting a lot of different submissions, right? She can basically do everything. Maybe she gets to the back. I'll say she's been racking up the rear naked choke. So I'll make the rear naked choke call in this matchup. But I just feel like maybe even an armbar. So I don't know. Mesquita, either way, by round one submission, I think she kind of runs over Mullins here. Next fight, we got Vinny Oliveira versus Andre Fili. Now, this is a banger. And I think that this is going to be an entertaining fight. And this is one that, man, I went back and forth with this fight here because Vinny Oliveira moving up to the featherweight division, a guy that at 135 kind of had like a physicality and imposing will and frame advantage, right? He had this imposing style to where he just keeps his hands down, walks you down, and was a big dude in the bantamweight division to where he just kind of bullied people. And now that he's coming up to 145 pounds against a guy in Andre Fili who's 5'11", is going to have almost a 4-inch reach advantage, I just don't know that Vinny's just going to walk at Andre Fili and just bully him, right? I feel like Fili is an OG. He's a dog that's been in the game for a very, very long time. He's seen it all, right? He's been in there with some of the best fighters in featherweight history, right? He's been in there with, I believe, Holloway, Yair. Got knocked out by Dan Ige, but he's been in there with Cub Swanson, right? He's been in there with some of the best guys in the world that we've ever seen in this weight class, right? Did get subbed by Mel Costa, which is not a horrible loss, but it was the way that he lost, right? Kind of dove in and put himself in a guillotine, which was just a questionable decision by Fili. The close one against C-Rod, and this was a close fight against Jose Delgado, which was very impressive. And Delgado, to me, is a more dynamic technical striker than a guy like Oliveira. So I feel like Andre Fili is very capable of winning this fight, and I think that this is going to be a very, very competitive fight. I just worry with Andre Fili. He's one of these guys to where when he shows up and he's on, he looks like a top 15 guy. And then when he shows up and it looks like he's just a little bit off that night and maybe not feeling it, he doesn't look like a top 15 guy. At 35, almost 36, Fili's got all the experience in the world. I think there's definitely a world to where he catches Oliveira, can knock him out because Oliveira's got that hands-down style, and whenever Vinny loses, it's him pretty much getting knocked out. So I definitely could see that, at least prior to the UFC. That's how he was losing his fights. He was getting caught in exchanges with his hands down, getting knocked out. So I could definitely see Fili, who's got the power, got the range, excellent boxing, and even good wrestling. So I could see Fili taking him down, maybe winning some minutes there. But I feel like Vinny Oliveira moving up to the featherweight division to where he's not draining his body as much as he was, I feel like we're going to see this guy maybe be a little bit sharper than what we were seeing at bantamweight. And it's not to say that he wasn't sharp at bantamweight, right? I know that Sopai, I think, took this on short notice, but that devastating flying knee KO, right, showed great takedown defense against Ricky Simone, who's a really good wrestler, was able to beat Said Nurmagomedov, who's explosive on the feet, was able to beat a dynamic, unpredictable Kyler Phillips, and then really his big hiccup in the UFC was getting dominated by Mario Bautista, which I expected because Bautista is elite on the ground, and I think Bautista's a better overall grappler, especially at this point in their careers, than Andre Fili. I've been back and forth on this one, but something tells me that Vinny Oliveira is going to win this fight. And I feel like it's going to be a 29-28 decision. Maybe Oliveira finds some sort of KO here. Maybe Fili even finds a KO. Like, I could definitely see someone getting knocked out. But I just feel like Vinny Oliveira, he's got the confidence, man. He's 30 years of age. I think he's going to walk down Fili with like little to no respect, which is one of the reasons I think he might get KO'd. But if he doesn't get knocked out by Fili, I think Oliveira is one of these guys that as long as he doesn't gas, and I feel like him not draining himself to get down to 135 and coming up to 145, obviously the lighter man moving up here, the skill, even though Fili has a ton of skill as well, so I don't think that there's going to be like this skill gap because Oliveira is the guy moving up in weight here. I just think Vinny's style, we've seen if Fili's just, not that top 15 looking Fili that night, you can pressure him, you can get after him, you can make him feel uncomfortable. And one of the things about Andre is if you can put him on the back foot and he's not able to clip you with a big shot or get to his grappling, you start to see him react badly to some of these shots. And I could just see Oliveira walking forward with those hands down to where I said he could definitely get clipped on the way in. But if he doesn't, I could see him landing some big shots, damaging up Andre Fili, hurting him, and being able to win some of these rounds based on damage. But we have seen that Oliveira sometimes could be a little bit lower output, right? Kind of stalking, looking to throw those winging shots, and I don't particularly love his style. I think it's reckless. I think it's going to catch up to him at some point. Obviously, not really the Bautista fight because it was the grappling of Mario. But I think with the striking, he is bound to get slept badly in the UFC, and it might just be this fight. But given the fact that Oliveira does have good leg kicks, I think that he is going to feel a little bit better, a lot better, I should say, from not draining himself to 135. And Andre's one of those guys where you just don't know which version of him you're going to see come fight night. But if we see the guy that fought against Jose Delgado, and we've seen in some, not in this fight, but we've seen in some of these fights, man, I could definitely see a world to where Andre Fili can get the job done. So to me, it feels like a very close fight. In my eyes, I could see it going either way, but man, I got to go Vinny Oliveira. I like his power. Even though his style is reckless and irresponsible, right? Kind of like a Yuri Prohaska in a way, different, but you get what I'm saying. Kind of reckless. It has some flaws with the defense, but when it comes to the offense, he's very dynamic, very explosive, can switch the stances, move forward, and his takedown defense has looked really, really improved throughout his UFC career. Obviously not against Mario Bautista, but he gassed like 2 minutes into the fight. And either way, I thought Bautista's ground game was going to be too much. So, yeah, I don't know, man. I've been back and forth on this fight. But I am going to settle in with Vinny Oliveira because I do think that he will overwhelm Fili and put him on the back foot and be able to land some of those bigger shots. And I think Fili at this point in his career, when he takes some of those big shots, doesn't have some of the best reactions. So I can see Oliveira out damaging him and winning a decision here. I'll say 29-28, Vinny Oliveira, damage-based decision. Next, we got Melsik Baghdasaryan versus Murtazali Magomedov. Now, you see the last name Magomedov, and you're just like, oh, man, he must be really good, right? You just kind of make the assumptions, right? Especially in the MMA world, right? You hear that last name, and people start, like, flinching, and they, And sometimes we do see some frauds come in with names that end in OV and some of that stuff. So you always got to do your research, man. The reality is I do believe that Murtazali Magomedov is actually, I don't know why his nickname is the highlight. That is for Justin Gaethje. This dude should be forced to change his nickname. But having said that, this dude has been a highlight-making machine so far. He's got 10 wins in his career. I believe all of them are by finish, 5 submissions, and 5 knockouts. So this is a guy that can get it done in any aspect of MMA. Now, the question that I have is, how good is he actually? Because when I go back and I watch some of the competition, I got some question marks, right? You see some of the opposition on here to where it's like, well, you kind of should be running these guys over, right? Not that, again, he's just fighting kind of who he can. So it's not like I'm factoring that in too much, but I'm always cautious. Whenever you get a guy that has a ton of hype and is going to be some sort of big favorite, coming into their debut. And look, getting the job done over Zurcher, putting him away, knocking him out, it was wildly impressive, right, on Dana White's Contender Series. And that, I think, is another big reason that he has a lot of hype coming into this. Magomedov has power on the feet. He's technical. And to me, he's a very poised 26-year-old guy making his debut in the UFC. And I like the fact that he is good wherever the fight goes. He's good on the ground. He's got power. We've seen him kind of get drug out in some of these fights, and he can find finishes at any time. Now, I will say this. It could potentially get very, very dicey if Magomedov does not grapple in this fight. If he doesn't grapple and he looks to just strike with Melsik Baghdasaryan, of course Magomedov has the power to be able to put him away. But that to me is giving Melsik, who is a very dangerous, striking-based fighter that has excellent kickboxing, you're going to put yourself in the line of fire because Melsik's got nasty striking. Lightning fast combos, really fast kicks, rips to the body very, very well, can attack the legs. To where I could definitely see Melsik possibly fraud-checking Magomedov here in the debut, right? And I think that that's a real possibility, but I do think that Magomedov has a clear path to victory here. I think he has the power on the feet to, yes, he could strike with Melsik and catch him and put him away. Like, I'm not counting that out whatsoever, and I think that Murtazali is very technical on the feet to where he could still hang with Baghdasaryan in that realm. But we've seen throughout Melsik's career at 34 years of age, this is a guy that, to me, we haven't seen the necessary improvements with the grappling game, right, at moments, right? Again, rather inactive UFC career. Was able to knock out Angelin a while ago, right? Took out Bruno Souza, was able to beat him on the cards, got submitted by Josh Kulabau. And if you're getting subbed by Josh Kulabau, and I know it's 3 years ago, I think Magomedov is possibly better than Kulabau on the ground, right? We got to see it in the UFC first. Tucker Lutz was able to get it done, right? Tucker Lutz was having some moments on the ground, but was just a lot faster on the feet and then getting knocked out by Jean Silva. No harm, no foul. Silva's an absolute animal. That was a year and 3 months ago. What version of Melsik Baghdasaryan are we going to see? Is he still going to be that super fast and electric striker? Is his takedown defense going to look improved? Those are the questions that I have for him coming into this fight. But, man, I got to go with Magomedov here. I got to go with Magomedov. And I think that he's going to get a submission. And I think it's going to happen in the second round. I think early, they're going to have some back and forth striking. Obviously going to be important for Magomedov to kind of set up the striking. Don't just shoot blind takedowns to where Baghdasaryan could time a knee, because we've seen that Melsik's nasty on the feet. Very, very fast, very explosive. But we've also seen, from what I've seen on tape, Magomedov is explosive as well. He's got power in his hands. He's very tactical. He has pretty solid technique. But I feel like the ability to strike and grapple and feint the level changes to open up the striking to then level change, I think that can scramble the brain of Melsik. And I feel like this is a strategic matchup being booked here in Magomedov's debut, to where he has a clear edge with the grappling. Unless Melsik's made some huge improvements there, which I'm not quite sure if he has. I could see him finding a way to get it done. But I feel like Magomedov can strike with him a little bit on the feet, mix in the takedowns, and either TKO him on the ground with some ground and pound, maybe catch him with a shot on the feet. But I think it's going to be the grappling of Magomedov that gets it done, and I think he gets to the back of Melsik and subs him in round number 2. If Kulabau can do it, I think that Magomedov is capable of doing it as well. So I'll go Murtazali by round 2 sub. Next, we got Andre Lima versus Kevin Borjas. This is a banger in the flyweight division, because Kevin Borjas, to me, is one of these guys where he's like not necessarily top 15 material, but early in fights, he looks like, if you just off the eye test look at Kevin Borjas, like he's very technical, good straight boxing down the middle, right? A good 1-2, excellent jab. He's got kind of a rangy frame for the weight class at 5'5" with a 68-inch reach, a good straight right hand down the middle, some good kicks. He's a good striker, right? And we've seen that overall he's got a good game. He's very, very, tough. We have seen him put away, but he's tough. Not going to give up on himself. Going to push forward, look to land some big shots, going to be scrappy, when the fight hits the floor as well. I just feel like this is a tough matchup for him, because Kevin Borjas, to be fair, he's been in there with some of the best guys. I mean, Joshua Van, who's just an elite boxer, right? Alessandro Costa, who's Diego Lopez, Diego Lopez's clone, who's dangerous everywhere, right? Beat Ronaldo Rodriguez in an impressive fight, right? Basically fraud-checked Ronaldo. I shouldn't say fraud-checked. It was a great performance, but a lot of people were hyping up Ronaldo Rodriguez, and he got it done, which was impressive, right? Loses to Sumadarje, who's a very good striker, and most recently gets knocked out by Imanol Rodriguez, who I think is one of the best prospects in the UFC right now, who's got excellent boxing. And Borjas hurt him badly in that fight. Right, hurt him badly. And I feel like a lot of that is, yes, Borjas landed a good shot, but very taking advantage of an inexperienced Imanol Rodriguez. I think this fight's going to be competitive early. I think Kevin Borjas can land some big shots on Lima, sting him up, possibly even wobble him early to where we're like, man, like, is Borjas about to get the job done? But the problem is I just think Andre Lima's that good. And I think Andre Lima is the more well-rounded fighter. I think that in this fight, even though Lima's not like a guy that's getting all these submissions out here, he has a good ground game. He can shoot takedowns. He can control you on the deck. He does have a capable submission game. And on the feet, his Muay Thai-esque striking, it's good. He's got that high guard, moves forward. He's got power in his hands, good elbows and knees in the clinch, excellent leg kicks to where I think he's going to look to wear down and attack the lead leg of Borjas to take away some of the explosiveness, take away some of the sting in the jab, some of the sting in that right hand. And I just think that that's where we're going to see Lima start to take over this fight. I mean, the close one against Raposo, and we're seeing that Mitch Raposo's look pretty good, right? Gets it done over Felipe dos Santos, most recently submitting Daniel Barres, which, because Daniel Barres didn't look particularly great in his last fight. So at the end of the day, and Luis Garul put on a good performance, not to take anything away from him, but at the end of the day, Andre Lima, I just think that he's a little bit more technically sound than Kevin Borjas, and I think he's a more well-rounded mixed martial artist, where I think Borjas could take a round in here. But I think at some point, Lima mixes in the takedowns, maybe even early, to take away some of the explosiveness of Borjas, and then he's able to out-damage him, outland him, control him on the deck, win minutes there, maybe even finds a submission or a late TKO stoppage. We've seen later in fights, Borjas is a guy that can, kind of be taken advantage of as he starts to possibly slow down at times. But I think he's a dog, man. I think Borjas is really good. Now, I don't think he should be nearly as big of an underdog as he is. I think that this fight is a lot closer than what a lot of people might think. But I do believe in the skills of Lima. He's well-rounded. I think he puts his foot on the gas, looks to grapple early, take away the base of Borjas with that calf kick, and then push him around in the clinch, wear on him, and then drown him kind of later on in the fight. So I'll say Andre Lima gets this one done on the scorecards in a competitive fight, to where I could definitely see Borjas taking a round in here. But I think Lima, to me, he's got more upside, and I think he's the more well-rounded fighter. I think he turns this into an MMA fight and mixes it up on Borjas to get it done. Next, we got Christian Rodriguez versus Hyder Emil. This is a good one. Because Hyder Emil, right, training over at El Nino Training Center, right, this is a guy that is just an absolute berserker in there, man. This guy's like a tornado of chaos. He just moves forward. He's just going to throw bombs away, doesn't really move his head a lot, and just relies on durability, toughness, and the Hurricane's kind of the perfect nickname for him, right? Because he just comes at you like a storm with very, very irresponsible defense, looking to pressure you, land big shots, mix in some of the takedowns, and really just kind of drown you by putting you in this chaotic, high-paced fight. And we've seen, for the most part throughout his career, it was working, right? Stopped Fernie Garcia, was able to get Lee out of there, right? Close one against William Gomis that I thought could have went either way. And it's the pace and pressure of Hyder Emil that gives guys a lot of problems. And the fact that he does have power in the hooks that he throws, right? Around the guard, southpaw, moving forward, high guard, throws these big power shots. But one of the problems that we've seen with Hyder Emil is the defense. And that is where he leaves himself very, very open. And that's why I picked Delgado to put him away. And I mean, Delgado's a nasty striker on the feet, very, very seasoned when it comes to the overall striking game, was able to put him away with a knee, which was nasty, right? Then goes out there and loses to Jamal Emmers, which was a great performance by Emmers, but a weird one for Emil. He was kind of getting tired, slowing down, and something we really don't ever see from Hyder Emil. So I don't expect to see that version of Hyder in this fight. So I could definitely see Hyder Emil pressuring C-Rod, bringing him into kind of a dirty brawl type of fight, to where that's where Emil can capitalize, land some big shots, maybe even put C-Rod away, out damage him and win a decision. But I'm going to side with the more technical fighter here in C-Rod. And one of the things that I like about Christian Rodriguez, right, the win over Isaac Dalgarian, did get submitted by Julian Rosa, which Juicy J sometimes can be really good, right? We've seen that throughout his career. Beat Austin Bashi. He's been the prospect killer, right? What he was able to do to Raul Rosas as well. He's been in there with some good grapplers, so I don't think that Emil's grappling is something that's necessarily going to trouble C-Rod. Right, lost to Mel Costa, who's really good. Had the close fight with Andre Fili. I feel like Christian Rodriguez is going to be able to get this one done, man. Training over at Rufus Sport with the Pettis Bros, right? They got a great camp out there, and I feel like C-Rod's been around some really, really great fighters, and he's taken a lot of notes over the years. And Emil's around some great fighters as well, right? So... Man, I don't know. This is a competitive fight, but I'm going to side with C-Rod to get this one done by a decision. I just feel like the technicalities are on his side. I think he can stop the takedowns of Emil, and on the feet, while Emil, you could maybe say, has more power and is more chaotic, I think C-Rod can just pick at him by being the more technical boxer, pick him apart, with the boxing, put the jab on him, bust up the face of Emil, get the right hand going since it's going to be that open stance battle, kicks to the body, check left hook around the guard. I can see C-Rod dictating where this fight takes place by defending the takedowns and then just kind of picking at Hyder Emil on the feet to get the job done. I think he could do similar things to what Jamal Emmers did. I think that C-Rod is a guy that has some really good technical striking, can mix things up really well, and get this one done. And I'm pretty sure that Hyder Emil, that's with Gilbert Melendez that he trains with, I'm pretty sure, right? So good camp. He's got a good ground game as well, but I think C-Rod can stifle that, keep it on the feet, and kind of just pull off a crafty, savvy, veteran-like performance to get this one done by just being the more technically sound fighter in there. So give me C-Rod to get this one done. 29-28 on the cards. Co-main event, we got Ion Cutelaba versus Navajo Sterling. This, to me, is a straightforward fight. I think Navajo Sterling at times can be a little bit underwhelming, right? You see him fight, and it's kind of like, man, we're just kind of waiting for this guy to open up a little bit. And now, to be fair, I picked him to knock out Bruno Lopez because I felt that Bruno Lopez was like the perfect matchup for Navajo to get a KO. A guy that's going to pressure him, get after him, and be there to be hit, which is if you're going to chase after a counter striker like a Navajo Sterling, you're going to walk into a shot and get KO'd. Right, but up until that point, a win over Rodolfo Bolanos is a pretty solid win we've seen because Bolanos actually been putting on some good performances. Right, was able to beat Ivan Urslan, who just picked up a nice win. Beat Tukos, knocked out, Latau on DWCS to get the contract with a good left hook. Navajo Sterling is one of these guys that has really rounded out his game, right? He's got a solid grappling game offensively and defensively. The takedown defense especially has looked really, really solid. He's 6'4", got a 79-inch reach. He's going to have a 4-inch reach advantage here. I think that's big for him in this fight. Training over at CKB, we know how good of strikers those guys are and how educated they are on the feet, right? He fights very similar to like Izzy Adesanya, Carlos Solberg, that long, stance, right? Fights behind the jab, sets up the check hook very nicely, fires off the right hand down the pipe. Very, very technically sound, polished striker. And Navajo, one of his good weapons as well, best shots is that calf kick. And I could see Ion Cutelaba, a guy who could be a little bit bladed and heavy on that lead leg, looking to move forward and be a pressure-based fighter. I could see Navajo attacking the lead leg to take away some of the explosiveness and really wear on Cutelaba, right? Because if you could take away the base, chop the tree down, man. Slow down some of the movement. Make it very difficult for Cutelaba to plant and get to, some of those explosive combinations that we see Cutelaba throw, right? Some of those explosive shots that we have seen Cutelaba be able to get on guys because he's got solid grappling, right? We saw that against Umar Sy, was able to sub him and get him out of there, right? Bukauskas was able to beat him, and I thought Cutelaba won this fight, and I picked Bukauskas to get it done. I thought that was really close, right? Ibo Aslan was able to check him early, right? Beat Ivan Urslan in the close one, did lose to Felipe Lins, right? So Ion Cutelaba, right? The fights with Magomed Ankalaev. I mean, this dude's crazy, right? He was chaotic back in the day and maybe chilled out a little bit more, but he still has that in him. And if he fights chaotic, I think he's going to get sniped by Navajo Sterling and get knocked out. But I don't think Cutelaba is going to be, I don't think he's going to be reckless. I think at moments he'll pick his moments, obviously, to get in on the clean striker. That's how you can kind of, you could get countered, but that's how you can kind of frustrate a clean striker by kind of making it a little bit ugly. So I think that's what Cutelaba is going to look to do. The problem is I think Sterling has him beat just about everywhere. I think he can stop the takedowns, keep Cutelaba at the edge of his strikes. We know Sterling's got good punishing front kicks to the midsection. I think Navajo maintains range, out damages, and outstrikes Cutelaba to get it done 30-27 on the cards. And I could potentially see a late finish, right? Especially if, Cutelaba is not able to land a knockout shot, which I don't think happens. He's not able to have a ton of success with the grappling. I could see him slowing down by Sterling picking at him with the jab, busting up his face, affecting the breathing, wearing out the lead leg with the calf kicks, front kicks up the middle to take some of the wind out of the sail. And I could just see Navajo methodically picking him apart. And maybe he is able to get Cutelaba out of there in the second or third round. But I'm going to say decision. I think Sterling, again, has shown very good poise in there. He's got good technical striking. And I think that he has really improved with the overall grappling to where he can keep the fight on the feet where he wants it and outstrike Cutelaba and pick him apart. He's the clear, more technical striker here. Cutelaba does have power, but I got to side with Navajo. I think he picks him apart. And in a way, Cutelaba is kind of a good stylistic matchup because he's going to move forward, and that's going to allow Navajo to do what he does best and just kind of pick at you from range. Give me Sterling, 30-27 on the cards. Last but not least, we have arrived at our main event of the evening. We got Manel Kape versus Kyoji Horiguchi 2. The Gooch. Scoochie Burr. Dude, I like Kyoji Horiguchi a lot, man, and I like Manel Kape a lot. And this is one of those fights I just want to sit back as a fight fan and enjoy, and may the best man win, because these are two dudes that I've been watching for a really long time, right? Over in Ryzen, having some outstanding performances, right? Kyoji Horiguchi was in the UFC at one point, and fun fact about Kyoji Horiguchi, right? Since coming back to the UFC, overall as a UFC fighter, he is 9-1 in the UFC. Kyoji Horiguchi's only loss in the UFC, I believe, was in a title fight where he got subbed by Mighty Mouse. Kyoji Horiguchi's a savage. Excellent, karate style of striking. Darts in and out of range. He's very, very quick. Excellent, 1-2s, gets the jab going, fires a beautiful right hand down the middle. He's got an excellent low kick as well. He's just a super difficult puzzle for a lot of guys to deal with. And if you can't deal with the range management, the speed, and the pressure that Kyoji will switch up on you, right? He'll start by playing the Matador game, sitting on the back foot. Then the next thing you know, you're on the back foot and he's pressuring you. Kyoji can fight at all aspects of the striking game. And he's also got a very, very, very good ground game. A very good ground game to where he was able to submit Manel Kape back in, 2017 in Ryzen, right? That was a pretty competitive fight for the most part. And obviously these guys have gotten a lot better since then, but Horiguchi was able to get the head and arm choke, was able to get him out of there in the third round. I don't know that Horiguchi's going to have the same level of grappling success in this fight. So I think that Kape's ground game, we have seen him get taken down. We've seen him have some issues there, but I do believe Manel has really kind of worked on that. And I think that he could do what it takes to keep the fight on the feet. Now, if he doesn't have the answers for the grappling, Kyoji could take him down, possibly even find a submission, win some control time to help Kyoji win a decision or slow down Kape to where you could maybe knock him out in the later rounds. What worries me for Kyoji in this fight is Manel Kape is just, I declared him as in a video that I made talking about the heaviest hitters in the UFC right now. Manel Kape is the heaviest hitter and the scariest pound-for-pound puncher in the flyweight division. This dude has one-shot power, which is terrifying at 125. So at any moment, Kyoji Horiguchi can be outstriking Manel Kape for 15 minutes, and then we get into the fourth round, and Manel Kape just says, F it, ducks underneath, swings through and throws a big shot, and it touches the chin of Kyoji and puts him away. That's how this fight can go, to where, yes, Kyoji does have that pinpoint accuracy to where he could definitely hurt Kape and put him away, but I don't know that he has that same one-shot starching power that a guy like Manel Kape has. So power advantage, Kape. Grappling advantage, I think, goes to Kyoji. Speed and in-and-out linear movement goes to Horiguchi. But Manel Kape, man, he's a guy that, to me, it just stands out in this division when it comes to speed, when it comes to movement, and obviously, I've already talked about the power. So how do I see this fight playing out? I very much see a world where Kyoji Horiguchi comes in here and says, I got the better of you the first time. I've gotten better. I've only lost one fight in the UFC. And upon return, by the way, I've picked Kyoji in both of these fights to where I couldn't even believe he was an underdog against Tagiro and Bekov. Dominated him. Picked him apart on the feet. Was able to sub him. Picked him once again against Amir Albazi to where he put on a striking clinic. It's very possible that Kyoji could go in here, bounce in and out of range and just stunt on Manel Kape and just show levels in terms of the technicalities and just the level that I know Kyoji is at. Brr, the gooch. But man, I feel like Manel Kape's going to catch him. I feel like Manel Kape is going to catch him. I really feel like it's going to be one of those things where it's like a Yuri Prohaska type of fight to where Kyoji Horiguchi's going to be stinging him up. And it's going to be like Kyoji's doing Kyoji things. And then Manel Kape is eventually going to spring into range and find a shot and be able to put the gooch away, man. And I love this matchup. This to me is like an anime style. This is like an anime type of fight. These guys got like beautiful striking styles to watch. And this is going to be a high-paced fight. Both guys got good cardio, right? I think if anyone would slow down, it would probably be Manel Kape. We've seen he's got, he's a bigger guy for this weight class now. He's really filled out into the flyweight division with his frame. A big thing that I think is going to play a factor in this fight, Manel Kape has a 5-inch reach advantage. And we've seen Manel Kape as a devastating stance switch hitter, right? He could switch stances. He could go southpaw, orthodox. And I think that that's big for him in this fight because he can go orthodox and attack the lead leg of Kyoji Horiguchi because Kyoji does a pretty solid job of getting that leg out of the way or timing those calf kicks with the hands. But I think Manel's going to look to target the legs. We saw Manel do that in his last fight against Brandon Royval, was damaging up the lead leg because he can match your stance by being able to be a switch hitter. And I think that that's going to be a big weapon for Manel in this fight, is trying to wear down the base of Kyoji to make him a little bit more of a stationary target, to take away some of that in and out movement where Kyoji darts in and out of range. But one of the great things about having a karate style like a Wonder Boy, a Rob Whittaker, a Kyoji Horiguchi, MVP, when you see these guys come along, it's a tough style to prepare for. But the thing about it is, one, Kape has been in there with them before, even though these guys are different fighters than they were then. Kape's at least been in there with them before. He understands the movement. He's seen it for himself. He understands how quick Kyoji can close the distance. But what comes with that karate style, while you're explosive and getting in and out in a straight line, sometimes Kyoji, his hands are low, and I can just see Manel Kape, if he bites down, tucks the chin, timing Kyoji with a counter shot on the way in. So Horiguchi's going to have to be very, very careful closing distance, right? We saw Albazi landing some good shots on him, and Albazi to me is not that good of a striker. He's basically a wrestler that has a little bit of power in his hands, but he's not a very good striker in my opinion. Manel Kape, high-level striker. Kyoji Horiguchi, high-level striker. This is one of my favorite fights that we have had so far this year. This is a banger main event in the Apex. I love this fight. The flyweight division is absolutely loaded. But I think Manel Kape at some point, man, I'm going to say in the third round, Kyoji Horiguchi is going to dart into range. Kape is going to sting him with a shot. Kyoji Horiguchi is going to be on wobbly legs. Manel Kape will just kind of tee off along the fence. The referee will have to step in and call a stop to the fight. So maybe it goes the distance and Kape gets it done. Maybe Kyoji, is just able to show him levels, move in and out, not hit and not get hit type of style that we see from Kyoji, outpoint, Kape, and maybe even Kyoji finds a big shot that can put Kape out of there, implement the grappling and slow him down and find a submission. So I could see this fight going a number of ways. This is a sick fight. I've went back and forth on it, to be honest with you, because I think that this really is a coin flip type of fight to me, because both guys present unique challenges for the other. Horiguchi, the karate footwork, in and out, the grappling, the Kape, he's got some good low kicks as well, but the ability of Kape to switch stances, I think, is going to be big in this fight, to where he could batter the lead leg of Kyoji. We've seen Kape do a good job with the high guard. He's bouncy, springs into range, good feints. Sometimes keeps his head on the center line a little bit and forgets about the defense, to where I could definitely see, Kyoji cracking him with some big shots. But I think Manel Kape's explosiveness, I think that Manel has made a lot of improvements since the first fight, as has Kyoji Horiguchi. But Manel Kape is one of these guys, man. We saw in the Kyoji, right, when he was over in Ryzen, he did get knocked out by Kai Asakura, and we just saw how explosive Kai Asakura is against Smotherman. I was telling y'all about Asakura, man, right? Got knocked out by Sergio Pettis, but then got some payback in the rematch, right? We've seen so many impressive performances from Kyoji Horiguchi, man. Manel Kape, one of these guys, he was hot and cold for a while, right? But the star boy, figuring it out. Right, beat Felipe dos Santos, lost to Momakayev, who I think is one of the best flyweights in the world. I don't understand why he's not in the UFC. He should be. Right, knocked out Bruno Silva, hit Matrix mode, flow state. This was a masterclass, which, again, Edgar Shara has just easily put away Bruno Silva. So, we're seeing that Bruno Silva's chinny, right? Was able to put away Asu Amabayev, which was impressive because Amabayev's got good wrestling, which is where we saw some of the takedown defense on display. Most recently, knocking out Brandon Royval in devastating fashion. That was a terrifying knockout. So I do think at some point, Manel is going to be able to put that speed and power on Kyoji. I know Kyoji's fast, but you have to remember Manel Kape is very fast as well, and he's got the power and the technical setups to be able to lure you into a shot and put you away. So if Manel goes southpaw, I could see Horiguchi spamming some kicks to the body, trying to set up a high kick. I could see Kape doing the same thing. And then Kape wears out the lead leg of Kyoji, slows him down, boxes him in, is able to explode into range, throw one of those stand-switching combos like he did against Royval, catch him, put him on wobbly legs. The referee steps in along the fence, and Kape gets a stoppage. Could be wrong, man. I think this is a great fight. I could see it going a number of ways. I'm just going to sit back and enjoy this one, but for the sake of a pick, I got to ride with the heavy hitter, Manel Kape, the dude that I've been saying fights like he is in The Matrix. This is an anime style of fight. I can't wait for this one, man.